All right, we are continuing in the book of James. I'm going to read our passage for the day today from James chapter 5. And it says this: Dear brothers and sisters, be patient as you wait patiently for the Lord's return. Consider the farmers who patiently wait for the rains in the fall and in the spring. They eagerly look for the valuable harvest to ripen. You too must be patient. Take courage, for the coming of the Lord is near. Don't grumble about each other, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. For look, the judge is standing at the door. For examples of patience and suffering, dear brothers and sisters, look at the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. We give great honor to those who endure under suffering. For instance, you know about Job, a man of great endurance. You can see how the Lord was kind to him at the end, for the Lord is full of tenderness and mercy. Well, we've been working our way through the book of James, series we've called Faith for Everyday Life, and that's because the book of James is super practical in meeting us where we are in the stuff of life. And the whole idea that we've been hitting over and over is the faith that James invites us to is more than something that comes out of your mouth. It's more than something you believe in your heart or think in your head. It's something that plays out in the sometimes messy realities of life. And so James challenges us to this visible faith where there's this direct connection between what we say we believe and how we respond to the stuff of life. As we move forward, we're going to be in chapter 5 again today. So we started chapter 5 last week. And so as we get down to these last couple of sections of chapter 5, we're going to finish it out. But if you were with us last week, so James 5 begins with some words for the rich, which many of us say, well, that's not me. So he's talking maybe to somebody in the room, but it's not me. But James lays out this stinging rebuke to those who are wealthy, or one of the ways we invited you to look at it as those who have more than they need. And so he lays out the stinging rebuke, and what was jarring in it is there was no word of hope, no call to repentance, just judgment, which leaves you feeling a little bit uneasy and a little bit uncomfortable, which I believe is what James was trying to do. To, as we described it, rip away the warm, fuzzy blanket of comfort from those who have more than they need, and to help us see, maybe, our finances, our money, our stuff differently, to see how cold and callous we can become just by being comfortable. So as we come to this next section in chapter 5, James moves on from addressing the wealthy and the comfortable, and now he turns to the struggling and uncomfortable. The tone turns from a stark warning to a tone of compassion, a tone of consolation, kind of the you're going to be okay. He steps into this place where life gets hard and talks about our need for patience and endurance. So as we kind of lean into that this morning, I want to start with an image for you. I want to start with an image of pearls. So most of you know how we get pearls, but it's a fascinating process. So the pearl-making process begins when a foreign particle, sand or a shell or some kind of stone from the sea floor. So when something gets inside the soft part of the shell, the oyster or the clam has to figure out what to do with that. And so think of it like when you get a splinter in your finger. Right? And like it's crazy, like it's this tiny sliver in your finger, and yet somehow it commands your entire focus. You know what I'm talking about? And so this tiny sliver, like you have to do something about it. It's not an option to not do something about it. Like I can't keep going until I address the splinter. So kind of think of it that way for the oyster or the clam. When this foreign element gets inside, it's like something has to be done. And so for a moment, just use your imagination. Think like an oyster or a clam. Right? Like, so this small grain of sand or this piece of shell gets in, and no matter how hard you try, you can't get it out. No matter what you do, you can't find relief. And so the oyster struggles. Maybe it weeps, I don't know. Perhaps it prays, right? Stick with me. You know, like if an oyster was going to pray, it'd probably be something like, oh Lord, please take this out. I can't take this anymore. And despite the pleas and the attempts to do something about it, the oyster gets no relief. And so the exasperated oyster does the only thing it knows to do. It secretes this milky substance. And I won't give you the sciencey term. I'll give you the term that you would probably recognize. It's called mother of pearl. And so it secretes this milky substance that we call mother of pearl, and it coats the irritant. And it does it one layer at a time, little by little, day by day. Smooth layers cover the foreign particle, and slowly over time, actually over a period of years, that irritant is transformed into a valuable pearl. So here's what that means. Like if you see somebody wearing a pearl necklace or pearl earrings, those beautiful and amazing pearls are the result of an oyster's unanswered prayers. or maybe another way we can put it is that they're results of an oyster's hardship. It also means that without that hardship, without the irritant, there would be no pearls. So keep that in mind. Keep that image in your mind as we go forward here. So let me take you back now with that image, and I want to take you all the way back, and I know you're going to remember this, the first chapter of James, the first message, the first couple of verses, and right out of the gate, James starts with this. When troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Or, to use our analogy, consider it an opportunity to make some pearls. Right? And so here's what we all know is true. Like, troubles will come your way. They always do. Job troubles, car troubles, family troubles, health troubles, financial troubles. Like we could go on and on of the kinds of troubles that come our way. And some of them are small troubles. Some of them are bigger troubles. So here's the thing. Like I think we could all be okay with that if those bad things happen to bad people. You're like, well, you got what you deserved, right? But that's not how it works. All of us get the trouble. Good people, bad people, anything in between. Trouble comes for all of us. Being a Christian does not get you an escape from those troubles. Jesus did not get an escape from those troubles. Neither do we. And so when that stuff comes, those hard things come into our lives, we are left to pray, to lament, to react, to endure, to recover, or somehow find a way forward. So as we get to the end of this letter, James chapter 5, like it started with the word to the comfortable, and now it shifts back. And so we're back to this. This is from the beginning, and he's back again. a word to the uncomfortable and those who are struggling. And so he starts with this. We'll come back to that. Okay. We're just going to leave it right there. He starts with this. Dear brothers and sisters, be patient as you wait for the Lord's return. So here's the first thing I want you to notice, that is he points beyond your junk, beyond your stuff, really beyond your life. So in this life, there's going to be struggles. They're going to be there. That's just part of the deal. We all know that. And so if you make your way through one struggle, you're like, phew, I never thought I'd get through it. And then, bam, there's another one, right? And you find yourself in the midst of another struggle, another pearl-making opportunity. And so here's what I want you to see, is James is not minimizing our struggle. He's not minimizing our pain, but he is putting them into a much larger perspective. So you remember the rope? We had the rope that represents your life on the scale of eternity, and so there's this little section of the rope. That's your life right now. Like from the day you're born to the day you die, and the rest of the rope is eternity. And so in this small section on that rope that represents your life, that's the part where troubles will come. But when you cross into eternity, pain and trouble are no longer a part of it. There will be no more crying, no more sickness, no more pain. All of that is part of that sliver we call life. And so what James is doing is giving us a larger perspective. Not saying, oh, don't worry, it's going to be over quick. What he's saying is, just want you to see that this is just a fraction of what's ahead for you. So someday, and we've talked about this before, someday everything is going to be made right. But until then, we've got stuff. And in the meantime, we're called to be patient. So here's my question. Are you patient? Anybody here want to volunteer and say, oh, I am so patient? Because I just feel like something's going to happen this week to challenge that. Like most of us, the minute you talk about patience, like, oh yeah, that's a challenge. So I've acknowledged it before. I'll confess it again. I get frustrated waiting. One of the things in particular that tests my Christian character is a train that crawls across the tracks like slower than I can walk, or stops on the tracks altogether. And if it really wants to rub it in my face, it will start backing up on the tracks. Like that tests my patience. I'll just go ahead and share another one. Traffic lights that turn red just because you're coming. Right? And so you lawfully and dutifully sit at that red light for 2 minutes that changes and only changes when somebody starts coming the other way, and then it's their turn to stop for no reason, right? Like, I feel like trains and traffic lights conspire against me to test my patience. So I have issues. Do you? Anybody else struggle with patience? And as if patience weren't hard enough, I don't know if you've noticed it, but we live in a culture that just pushes us toward impatience. Because we treat comfort and convenience as a God-given right. There are a lot of places around the world where there is no expectation that they're going to get that. But we treat convenience and comfort as a God-given right. And so when we see comfort and convenience that way, then anything that gets in the way of that, that's a problem. That's frustrating. So let me give you a couple cultural examples. Fast food. Like, there's none of us who are going to try to argue that that's healthy. But it is so convenient, right? I mean, you order your food, and in under 2 minutes, you have it, and you didn't have to do any prep. There's no dishes to clean up. There's no fuss. Like, you just drive through and you get your food. So yes, it may not be good for you, but man, was that convenient, right? How about Amazon 2-day delivery? Like, did that not change the world? Like, it set a whole new standard of expectation. And honestly, now if you order from a retailer and they say 7 business days, you're like, what? You've got to be kidding. I'll just get it from Amazon, right? Like, we've got these things built into our culture. So you remember when you used to have to wait a whole week to watch the next episode of a TV series? Like, that's how cavemen watch TV. Like, that's crazy, isn't it? Like, now, if you want to watch a series, I mean, if you really want to apply yourself, you can do that in a couple of nights, right? So here's what I want you to see, like how culture feeds into us this sense that what we want, we should have right now. And patience is challenging enough. It's always been an issue for people. But when our culture has been quietly eroding our expectation that we should have to wait for anything, well, that becomes a problem. So James is talking about patience. But it's a different kind of patience. It's not like our silly impatience as we deal with setbacks, inconvenience, or our plans getting thwarted. It's more than the trains and the red lights. So he uses this word, patience, and he's talking about the kind of patience that we need when life gets hard. So he uses this word patience 4 times, and he uses another word, perseverance, 2 times in these verses. So I'm going to give you some Greek stuff here just for a moment. So the first word he uses for patience comes from two words that are smushed together in the Greek. So for fun, here's the Greek word, macrothumia. But I want you to know, so macro is what? We know that, right? Big, large. Thumia is suffering. Oh, man. Large suffering. Or what we call long suffering. Which sounds awful when you say it, doesn't it? I mean, if I have to suffer, can we at least do short suffering? Like, long suffering sounds horrible. And so the idea in long suffering is that you prepare yourself for a long period of waiting. We might say to have a long fuse. It carries the idea, you ready? Of being unrushed and unfazed by having to wait. Does that describe anybody here? You're unrushed and unfazed when you have to wait, right? But this is what James is talking about. Choosing to wait willingly, calmly, even expectantly. We'll come back to that one. So that's the first word. The second word communicates the idea of patient endurance or perseverance, some of your translations might say. It has this idea of patience, but one that has to work hard. So patient endurance is what we call it. Strength, fortitude. Like for a real world example, like think running a marathon, like when you're on mile 2, you got a whole bunch of miles to go, you might as well not start dreading the rest of it. Like keep going, right? So it's this sense of I'm willingly choosing to focus on waiting. So this word comes from a Greek word. So here you go. Hupomoneo. So hupo is what we would know as hyper. That would be our prefix. And the second part is to stand. And so it's hyperstanding. Standing with resolve, with grit. We might say standing that won't quit. Standing that refuses to sit down. It's making up your mind, I am going to keep going. Steeling yourself is the phrase we use sometimes, so that you can hang in there. And so we translate this idea as persevere or endure. And so, again, like these are qualities in a comfortable culture like ours, like they're losing the strength of these qualities. Comfort and convenience are what we're all about. And so endurance, like standing strong, like I shouldn't have to do that. That's uncomfortable. So a few years ago, let me preface with this. So it's been a known fact and topic of discussion that we are losing our ability to stand with grit, with endurance. And this isn't just me like whining. This is an observable, factual topic of regular discussion. In particular, it is universities trying to figure out what to do with the coming generations that have no sense of endurance. And this isn't to pick on anybody. This is just the reality. When we live in a comfortable culture, we lose that sense of standing strong. And so Psychology Today a few years ago published an article that observed this dramatic increase in the number of students asking for treatment for anxiety, depression, and addictions. That is present everywhere. We all are aware of that. It's discussed all over the place. But this growing phenomenon that's been observed over the last couple of decades, this article offered an explanation, the Psychology Today offered an explanation of why this is happening. And here's what they said. For young American adults, and I'll explain this phrase, there's no psychic middle ground. Frustration catapults immediately to crisis. So here's what that means, that any setback, any frustration, any struggle feels like a crisis. There's no gradient of small to big. There's just satisfied and unsatisfied. There's no tolerated distance between where I am and what I want and where I want to be. And so that psychic middle ground that it describes in Psychology Today, this is what we call patience. Or patient endurance. This is that place that we're losing, and it's not just young generations, it's all of us who live in this comfortable space. We don't know what to do when you start to take our comfort away, which is why when any kind of crisis happens, you watch us devolve quickly, don't you? This cultured people all of a sudden look barbaric. We've grown so accustomed to comfort and convenience that when we don't get that, it messes with us. It throws us. And there's all kinds of data that points to this. So Dr. Paul Brand, he was a renowned orthopedic surgeon. He spent a lot of his life serving poor people in poor countries. So he spent a lot of time, he was an American, but he spent a lot of times in these poor countries. And having seen the two together, having been living in both, here's what he says. People in technologically advanced societies live at a greater comfort level, but seem far less equipped to handle suffering and are far more traumatized when it comes. This is part of what we're up against when we talk about patient endurance. We're less patient, we're less resilient. So here's what James goes on to say. So consider the farmers who patiently wait for the rains in the fall and the spring. They eagerly look for the valuable harvest to ripen. You too must be patient. So, if you are impatient, farming is not for you. Right? Like, see, after a farmer does the prep work and prepares the soil and plants the seed, it's a waiting game. Like, you're counting on the seed and the soil and the weather to work together to produce a crop, but it is this slow process that requires some routines and some waiting and counting on a number of things that are completely out of your control. And so patience, even patient endurance, it's part of the job description. The farmer plants a seed, and then all he can do is wait. So James talks about the farmers who patiently wait for the rains in the fall and the spring. So in the Eastern Mediterranean region of the world, there are two primary seasons where they expect their rain that are normal and essential for the crop. It's in the spring and then in the fall. And so the farmer can't do anything about that rain. Can't make it come sooner, can't hold it off. All he can do is do what he knows how to do, and then count on the fact that eventually those rains that are so necessary will come. So I want you to hold this word for a minute. Eventually. So this is an interesting word. Eventually is a word that carries patience, right? But here's what's interesting. Also certainty. See, eventually means I don't know when, I don't know how long, may not be today or tomorrow or next week or next month, but eventually it's going to come or it's going to happen or there will be relief, right? And so that wide open middle space of eventually is that uncomfortable space where we don't want to sit because it's this hand-off, almost helpless place where you don't have things that you can do to move things forward. All you can do is wait and trust that God will come through eventually. In the meantime, we wait with patient endurance, but the expectation of eventually, believing that God will come through. I'm waiting, but I believe eventually I'm going to see God's goodness. James goes on to say, for examples of patience and suffering, brothers and sisters, look at the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. There's so much here, and we're not going to have time to unpack it, but many of the Old Testament prophets preached for years, dealing with persecution and opposition and people who just flat out hated them. There were long gaps where they would get no response that was favorable from the people. So they would continue to preach. God says, tell them this, tell them this, tell them this. And they're like, get out of here. Why do you keep babbling at us? And then even longer gaps where they're talking about something that's coming in the future and may not even happen in their lifetime. And they're trusting that what God told them to say, eventually God would do. They had to trust that God would do it eventually. So that's one aspect of patient endurance for the prophets, but there's another one that's even more striking. Like they had to endure harsh treatment. And I could give you so many examples, but I'm just going to give you a couple real quick. So Elijah was a powerful prophet. You know the story of him calling down fire from heaven to the altar, and it consumes it all. And then, in response to that, Queen Jezebel is like, you need to die. And now he's running for his life and fearing for his life and discouraged and overwhelmed because a powerful person has set her sights on him. And so he's on the run. The prophet Jeremiah. So he is called the weeping prophet. How'd you like that nickname? Right? And he when he prophesied, he was met with hostility, threats to his life, physical abuse. Nobody wanted to hear him, and they weren't shy about saying it, like, shut up and get out of here. And they did things to him. Like, he was literally known as the bad news prophet. He said to God in complaining, I open my mouth and all I say are discouraging things. Like, that's not who I want to be. That's not what I want to do. People hated him, and he put up with all kinds of mocking and outright disdain. And on one occasion, he was beaten and thrown into a dungeon. On another occasion, they threw him into a muddy pit. Think like tar pit. They threw him into a muddy pit and left him there to die, and had somebody not come and got him out, he would have died there. He was going to starve in that pit. That's Jeremiah's story. And there's a whole lot more to his. How about Hosea? Hosea was a prophet who God asked to marry a prostitute. And he said, here's what I want. I want you to marry a woman who is going to be unfaithful to you over and over and over again. And this will be an example to my people of this is what you do with me. Yikes. That's a brutal call, right? Like, I mean, was there a plan B on this? Because that doesn't sound good. Like, those are just three quick examples. There's so many examples we could give you of the prophets. So James is saying, like, look at those people. Like, they had to endure. They had to have a different kinds of patience. None of them got anything that looked like short suffering. They all did long suffering. And he's saying, this is the kind of faith you need to have. The last example he gives is Job. We give great honor to those who endure under suffering. For instance, you know about Job, a man of great endurance. You can see how the Lord was kind to him at the end, for the Lord is full of tenderness and mercy. So Job is an obvious example, right? Like, if you're going to look at somebody who suffered, like, it's one of the first names that comes to mind. Oh, Job. Nobody suffered like Job. But it's also an unusual choice. And here's why it's obvious, because of his suffering, but it's unusual because when you read the book of Job, he does a whole lot of complaining about the injustice of it all. Right? So here's the thing about Job. This was a man who could not make sense of his suffering and what God might be doing in his life. So when we read the story, we from the outset get to know some inside information that he never got. We get to see some things that he never got to see at the beginning of the story. So we know there are things happening in the spiritual realm that he doesn't know about. And so God has allowed him to experience this pain, emotional pain, physical pain, incredible grief. He's allowed the enemy to do harm. And Job is just reeling, trying to figure out, what do I do with this? And then, as he deals with his grief and his pain, he's got some friends that he's meeting with for counsel to help him through it. And their main point is, listen, dude, you must deserve this. So figure out what you've done to make God mad, and then confess it, and everything will go away. And Job keeps saying, I have not done anything. In fact, we know from the beginning of the book, he's a righteous man full of integrity. And the enemy said, the only reason he's righteous is because you've never allowed him to be tested. So Job had not done anything to deserve this. And so as his friends keep saying, well, here's the thing. You screwed up somewhere, find it, own it, and move on. And that's the only reason God could be against you. But he knows that's not the case. We know that's not the case. But here are a couple things that we can observe from Job's story. One, that God's presence never left him. Like in the midst of that kind of suffering, one thing he was aware of is that God's presence never left. And here's the second thing. While Job had a whole lot of questions, and he wasn't shy about asking them, he continued to trust God's character, even in the middle of his suffering. So you're going to recognize these words. They've been put into multiple songs, but these are from Job. Job, in the midst of sorting through the suffering and grief in his life, says this, I know my Redeemer lives. And one day, eventually, I will stand with him alive on the earth. Job is pointed out as an example of patient endurance. This is a man who knew what it was like to have a whole bunch of questions, but to still wait on God patiently and expectantly. He believed God was going to be for him and that he would see God's goodness. Even though all he saw right then was suffering, he was going to see God's goodness eventually. So let me take you to Easter. So the way Easter unfolded, right? Friday, Jesus was crucified. Sunday, he rose again. Maybe it's a question you never asked, but why not just do this on Saturday? Why prolong it? He was crucified on Friday. He could have been resurrected Saturday morning. Still made the point, right? He could still come out of the grave and be like, you killed me, but here I am. I get the one day, you need to know that he for sure was dead. But here's what I want us to see. So that gap between Friday and Sunday, that Saturday, that's when all that grief sets in for all those who loved him and believed in him. That's when the finality of it all sets in, the weight of it all. The questions that they're wrestling with, how did it go like this? How did it end like this? And when you stop and think about it, so much of our lives feel like that day in between, don't they? That Saturday, when God could have done something sooner, but he let us sit and wait with the questions. In that middle space, that uncomfortable space of not just waiting, but grief and pain. The kind of spaces in our lives where we're like, why? Why this? God, where are you? Where's your goodness? I just want to know you're with me. And these are the kinds of places where God is producing pearls of faith and endurance in our lives. Pearls that you don't get to see until you've gone a while in the waiting, right? They take time and patience, but they do become pearls eventually. So here's what I want us to do just as we come to the end. Like, whatever those uncomfortable places are for you, the trouble places, the struggle places, the place you're like, oh, these are going to be some pearls right here, right? Like, to stand confidently, believing that God is up to something. Even if it feels hard, even if it feels overwhelming, this is the confident expectation of faith. So, pastor and author Tim Keller said this. He says, every hour, something will come along that you bristle at. And when that happens, you're at a fork in the road. You can either say, I trust God, I'm going to be patient with what God is doing right now, and you can rest well. Or you can say, I trust my understanding of what needs to happen, and you can develop an ulcer. You can rest on God's goodness and get the peace that comes with that. Or you can just spin on it. You can live and lean into your anxiety, churning and stirring, trying to find an answer that you may never have, trying to find some control that you may never get, and in the process, wearing yourself down. So go back to the pearl. When hard times come, we persevere in faith. So every day, as you put your faith in God, you are surrounding your hardships, those irritants, those frustrations, those griefs. You're surrounding those griefs with that mother of pearl, which is your faith. Surrounding it, believing, claiming, knowing that God will come through, that you will see his goodness. And here it is again. Eventually. So, can you wait patiently with endurance for the eventually? The waiting and the certainty. I don't know, I don't see, can't even map it out from here, but I believe I will see God's goodness eventually. And when the story is done, there's going to be some valuable pearls that could not have been there any other way, except me patiently enduring to eventually. God will show. Let me pray.